This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and Our King's Competition. Delighted to be joined by Natasha Jonas. Yeah, finally, some fight news for yourself. December 14th, back out in Liverpool, Ivana Habazin for unified welterweight titles. Before we do get into it, I'm sure it's you're feeling much better now, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. You know, nearly 11 months out of the ring is just far too long. So yeah, we've moaned about a date, we've got one. Now we've got to go and perform and win it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess sort of just touching on that there. How good is it now to finally have something to work towards? I'm sure, it's pretty well documented this year. It's been a frustrating one for yourself. You've had a lot of sort of like lost hope with fight dates and this and that, but to finally get one must be a really, really good feeling.
Yeah, get a fight just before Christmas. I can have Christmas off to enjoy with my little girl. And yeah, yeah, I haven't hid my frustrations. It has been a frustrating year. But now I've got what I wanted and cried about. So, get on with it.
One thing you mentioned there, you said about you can enjoy a Christmas. I know you didn't get to do that last year because obviously I know you're preparing for the Mayor fight. Um, in boxing, it's no secret that you do have to make sacrifices. But it feel nice sort of when you don't have to make similar ones that you made before, as you say, like last year you had to do it and you didn't have to do it this year.
Yeah, definitely. I think just mentally, it's been a long year, and even though I haven't had fight dates, there was talks of maybe fight dates in May, June, August, Nov October, November. So I've been in the gym all year,
Hmm.
hoping that one of them fight dates would come off, and it hasn't. So to finally just get a fight date, I just feel like a big relief is off, and now, yeah, I can just go and do it and enjoy the training. It's hard to be in the gym just constantly training for nothing when nothing's coming, and when you've actually got a date, it gives you a different mindset and you train a little bit different because you have to. So I'm just glad to be in the right frame of mind to be actually working towards a fight date, and sacrifices is something it happens at every level. I've missed me cousin's wedding where I was a maid of honor and stuff for other fights. So that's just things that you do as a boxer. But it's just I'm just relieved to have a date.
Definitely, yeah. And I know it's all in the past now, but when you look back on this year, like, do you still sort of look back on it with some sort of like frustration and disappointment that, perhaps it is only the two, I know it's the two fights, but with the difference between them two fights and how long it's been?
No, I can't deny and hide that it is being frustrating. As I've said in plenty of interviews up and down the year, like I was frustrated. I'm annoyed. I'm too long in the tooth to be waiting this long between fights. I think 2022 was one of my most successful years in as a pro, and that's because I was active and out every so many months and fighting elite people at that. So if you want the best out of me, you've got to give me the challenges and you've got to keep me active. I think that's when I feel I perform my best.
Definitely. And a big factor of this fight, obviously being back in Liverpool, we saw how much of a success it was at the Echo with Michaela Meyer fight. So good to be back in the home city.
It is. Manchester's been good to me, to be fair,
Yeah.
but there's no place like home. And Liverpool always come out. They always turn out with a crowd. And it's when you're tired, when you're hurting, when you need to dig deep. When you hear the roar of that Scouse crowd, they spur you on. So yeah, it's great. It's great to be home. It's great to have another world title. It's amazing to be bringing big time boxing back to Liverpool, and it's great to be a female and doing that. I had messages off Mason Cartwright saying, I'm very very privileged to be on your undercard. Thanks for the opportunity, and that's amazing that one of the lads can say that to a female. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. Like that must be an exciting feeling because I'm sure when you were coming up, there was undercards that you were on. So to have that honor now, and not just Mason, but obviously like you got to think of Frankie Stringer as well, who's on the undercard. I'm pretty sure he's a product of Rotunda as well. So it must be
Yeah.
there's something nice about it, isn't there? There's something nice about that.
No, there is definitely. I've just secured, I think, Mikey Talent to be on there as well. So it's great for the young lads to be experienced and big nights. We don't have uh yeah, we haven't got the Smiths as a per se, as a union anymore. We don't have Bellew. We don't have the Conti. We missed that ship, but the Dodds, the Kid Shamrocks and all that stuff. But we do have Natasha Jonas, and we all ride the train together. If one of us is successful, we're all gonna feed off that. So I think that's a great thing to have.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think I might, forgive me if I've asked you this question before, but it's always something that's really fascinated me. And I'll ask any Scouser, but when you look at a proper fighting city, I think Liverpool is like probably the capital in the UK, because it consistently produces such top talent year in, year out. Sort of the era, there's going to be an era after yourself of great fighters coming through. So what is it you think about like Liverpool that consistently can produce such top talent year in, year out, decades upon decades?
I think we're just a fighting city. If you can't kick a ball, then you're gonna have to use your hand or be funny, and that's basically how it goes. If you're there in school, you can't kick a ball. If you're not the funny one, then you better be able to use your hands. And we're all. But I know I was fighting for the biggest dinner, so that's why I was going with my hands. So yeah, I think I just think there's something deep inside where we're gritty, we're passionate, and we lead by example and we follow the example. When you see successful, Bellew, the Smiths, everyone, and myself, I still go the rotunda. I still, drop my little girl there. I still do bits of training there. I still, help with sessions sometimes. And when kids see, your little plaque on the wall next to theirs, or your shirt hung up, your international shirt hung up next to theirs, and see you in the gym, knowing that you was that kid once, then that dream doesn't seem so far away. Sometimes you sit there and look at athletes and think, they're there, and that's not us. But when we're in the gym and you're seeing us and we're training alongside you, then that's attainable.
Mhm. Absolutely, for sure. And I guess quickly moving on and fighting Ivana Habazin, obviously unification. So yeah, so we know how sort of what you've done at Super Welter when you sort of clean up with a lot of the belts there. So yeah, good to get another unification on down at welterweight.
Yeah, I don't think the idea of anything is to go down, not to go up any. I think my days of going up are done. Um, but yeah, it's great, another great fight. I think she's an experienced, being a pro a long time, being in with some big girls, and she's not here to just make up the numbers. She's here to have a go, like we've seen with Clarissa, like we've seen with Brackhouse, like we've seen with Terry. So yeah, I've got to be on my game, and everything that she brings, which I do think she brings good stuff. I just think I'm better, and that's basically it.
Definitely. Just sort of looking back, like as you mentioned there about the sort of the frustrating time that this year's been, Tash. I watched an interview with your trainer Joe Gallagher on Seconds Out, and even in May, when I interviewed him, sort of when a Coley beat, when a Coley fought in Poland, and he sort of spoke pretty openly, and he said, I said to Tasha just to retire, because what she's done in the game is already set in stone, and he said that publicly, but for yourself, like behind closed doors, was there ever that sort of consideration saying like, I'm getting no lucky, like what is the point in carrying on?
Definitely, there has been times. I mean, there's been plenty of time. I remember in the winter, every winter in the amateurs, I was like, "This is my last year. This is my last year." But then there's just something that eats away at you, and I don't feel like I've reached my peak. I don't feel like I've had, you know, I know I've had huge fights and big nights, but I think there's still a burning desire to get that last one, and and have that big final hoo-ha where I can just be like, okay, now I'm satisfied. Everything that happened since Namas has been a bonus. Like literally, I've gone above and beyond what I ever thought I could do, and I'm just riding the train till the wheels fall off.
Mhm. For yourself, is that important to understand that there is like you can see that door in a way, that exit door? Like I know you obviously do great stuff with punditry with Sky and that, and there's that sort of that outlet. But is it important to sort of understand that I'm not in this for too much longer, so I might as well enjoy it while before the sort of the candle burns out.
Yeah, I've literally just been saying in an interview before you. Um, I ever since the Namas, like even in the Olympics, because you're always so results driven, I never enjoyed the moment. And that was one thing I regret about the Olympics, is that I I was in a home Olympics, got you know a record for the crowd participation noise, and I didn't enjoy that experience. I wasn't in the moment because I was focused on the result. And I'm not saying obviously you've got to be focused on the result, but now one of the things that I worked on with the psychologist, just enjoying the emotion and having the experience of the feelings that you're going through at the time. So I did stand there in Namas and I looked around and I could feel my sweat dripping down. I could feel the hostility because it was a Khan Brook. I could feel the tension in the room. I could, it was like there was so much atmosphere but I enjoyed the experience. And then I went out on a brilliant night, which just, you know, speaks for itself. But now, every single time I fight, I have that experience because not, it's one day you just look back and it's just a memory. So you have got to just be present, I think, in boxing sometimes and feel the emotion, feel the experience and enjoy it.
Just out of interest, there, just picked up on something you said there. You said about working with a psychologist. If you don't mind me asking, like, how long has that been for, and how much of a benefit have you found that to your game?
We've had one since GB, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we had a sports psychologist on GB. It's not always about like what you would think. Sometimes it can be little intricate things about your body language. You know, or sometimes it can be something major. I can't even think of something off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
there's lots of different components to having a sports psychologist, not the blatant obvious ones that people always jump to and assume. But yeah, I've had one since GB. I didn't really have one in my first few fights simply because I couldn't afford to
Yeah.
bring someone on board. But
Yeah.
I've definitely since before Terry Harper, I think that I've worked with a sports psychologist because they are important, and your brain is like any other muscle, and it's probably the most important muscle that you're ever going to have, ever going to need. And whether you can, will, do, won't, it all starts with what your brain thinks, how it prepares. Because I literally know that my body can do anything as long as my brain's behind it. If my brain's not with it, then my body's not going to do it. So I have to use that muscle as much as a run on the treadmill, as much as a lift a weight in S&C, as much as a throw a medicine ball about, as much as a skip. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, just quickly moving on as well, and a big talking factor when this fight got announced and when this card got announced is obviously Lauren Price being in the undercard, and I imagine it's a question you're going to get for the next 4 weeks and all on fight week about a potential fight between you two. I just spoke to Lauren about a couple hours earlier, and she said, the reason this fight's in Liverpool, I'm on the undercard is ideally because that's the next fight for yourself. Ideally, sort of, if Lauren's saying that for yourself, albeit get through Habazin, then Price fight is the one to make for you?
It's the one that I've signed to do. So yeah, that we both have to go out and do what we need to do, and that's the next fight. I don't know what she's contracted. It's definitely contracted for me. But yeah, it's I don't want to preempt anything and look past the person that's in front of me. So as much as I know they're already saying Battle of Britain and talking about what comes next, I've just got to focus on what's in front of me. Like I say, like I've just been explaining about living in the moment. I've just got to live and deal with what's in front of me.
Yeah. Just from what you're saying there, so is there an agreement for that fight to be next then, albeit you both get through on December 14th?
For me, there is. Yeah, I don't know about for
Okay.
Lauren, but for me, there is.
Okay, that's an interesting one. But as you say, like not sort of talking too much about other fights because you have a champion as well in front of you. But you must accept, as you say, like that always talk about this one last hurrah or these big fights, especially as a welterweight, like that being a domestic one it must be a really, really big fight for yourself.
Yeah, they're all big fights, aren't they?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's fights that I want for myself to call it peace and just bow out. Um, but there's fights I need to do before that, obviously. So let's get them ones out the way.
Mhm. As you say there, like regardless of Lauren Price, you must, and yourself being a champion and sort of you looking to unify division, it must be so exciting because I know beating Michaela Mayer, but there is still, as you say, massive fights, regardless of Lauren Price, out there for yourself. So you talk about sort of one of them big fights before your career sort of comes out. Like they're not, as you say, I said to Lauren as well, they don't fall far from the tree, do they?
No, definitely not. I think with the inclusion now that all the promoters are working together and on different shows, whether they're on Saudi shows or not, they're more inclined to work together. So the big fights can be made, whether that's a Maya fight, whether that's a Katie fight, or whether that's a Lauren Price fight. Some fights are just easier to make because we're with the same promoter, but other fights are just as easy now because promoters are a bit more willing to work with each other.
Mm. Final one for myself, and I guess a general question. Obviously, we did see Taylor Serrano this weekend, and we saw the viewing figures for itself. For yourself, you've been main event in multiple cars now and being in big arenas. When you look at Taylor Serrano and the viewing figures, and you look at obviously a world title fight in Rio season, do you think there's a lot of sort of positive moves in the women's game and positive steps in the right direction as it further continues to develop?
Yeah, I think the insistence that promoters, platforms have on putting females on, and not just as the tokenistic gesture, as real elite top class fights.
Mm.
Um, we always knew how good the fights would be at that level. We just needed the world to see it, and now I think the boxing public appreciate them because let's be honest, the best fight on that whole card was Katie's and Serrano's. The ones before there was a couple of ones before that was decent, but none of them touched where that went and how good a fight that was, and definitely the one after didn't. So yeah, when we've got them big opportunities, we're taking the chance and giving everything. So yeah, hats off to both ladies. They performed brilliant. And when the next female fights come in, whether that's myself, whether that's Chantel, whether that's Sandy, whether that's whoever, we've got to step up to the plate and keep performing and keep showing the world why women's boxing needs to be where it is.
Absolutely rightly put. Tasha, always a pleasure to speak to you. Good to see yourself and looking forward to yourself being back in the ring. As always, thank you for the interview and yeah, all the best. I'm sure I'll be seeing you on Fight Week of December 14th. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
A nice one, thank you.
Cheers. Thank